But if I didn't have any big buck vibes before, look at this. He's gonna stand here for a long time. So ideally, if that's what he's doing, and you have the swamp water there pushing thermals towards me, and this is guaranteed. This is exciting, actually. These are the cameras you get 160s on. It is May 8th. We're out here back on Big Woods public land, and we're kind of extending off of where we ended last time. And we're right now into a heavy hunting pressure area now, but I'm going to use this to access more remote areas. There's a lot of swamps, there's hardwoods, and it should butt up against a lot of clear cuts. Now the idea here is there's a lot of people hunting here, but there has been historical success here with big bucks. And there's a reason for that, because it has a lot of water. I know there is a chance of having oaks up here because of where it's at, and there should be some remote beech nut locations as well on the remote side of this that I'm trying to get to. Now the hardest thing about today is accessing this area because it is extremely thick. It's hard to navigate, but because there is a lot of hunting pressure here, there are some hardcore trails that have been gouged out of this place from people going in and out every year. So we're gonna use those to get back to an area where people probably stop going. And also we can branch off using our maps and knowing how we wanna use this based on the cover. We can get back to these other locations that people aren't going to. And also if I find some crazy sign on the back side of this, it's extremely hard to get to and extremely remote from the direction I'm going today, but it's the way I have to go through to check everything, and I'm gonna be going through all the bedding areas and stuff. But if I had to, I can find a back way in I know of, but it's gonna be a couple miles on the bike, hiking, and then coming in through hardwoods on the edge of the clear cuts. But that would be a heck of a hike, but it would be an easy one. So if we find something on the back that we want to get to, the way I'm going today, I know is going to be absolute hell. And I already saw a couple does on the way in, which was expected, but I'm guessing we walk maybe another 150 yards and we'll be getting into all the deer. I literally, like I said, 100 yards I walked, and I'm on the trail that people have made, and I smelled something so I looked around, and the reason I smelled it is because we have buck crap here that is literally still hot, and it stinks. We got doe droppings here. So we're on literally heavy pressure, as you would say, for people, but it's also close to everything the deer want: water, food. It's where they're heading. So even though there's pressure here, it doesn't mean there's not big bucks here as well. Sometimes you have to be in the pressure to get the big bucks. Usually they'll stay just outside of whatever pressure they're smelling, and generally in a spot where there is no human scent. So even though I'm close to pressure right now, the bucks are obviously coming through here. So if we can find even just off of pressure or an overlooked spot around what people are already hunting, it might be where the big bucks are. You still see all these people that hunt that are killing big bucks. Doesn't mean that they have to go as far away as possible. You just got to figure out what these deer are doing, because they don't want to go further than they have to from the food, from the water. So we push through where I think the majority of the hunting pressure will be down here, out to that way, where I think 90% of them are going to hunt down there, or they're going to come up on this side over here, based on how easy it is to access. Because once you get past this point, it's a little bit more of a mess. But you can see there's a little side hill here, and we already found our first bed right here, has doe droppings in it. Just looking over the main hunting pressure, as someone starts coming up this hill, they'll hear it, and they'll just probably go back to secondary bedding, either on this gradual ridge, or what I'm after is this knob bedding up here. And we already found our first little scrape here, heading directly to that knob I was telling you about. And wow, we got a cross trail and a half here. So I just came through, there's a defined trail going through this brush here. It's hard to tell from this angle, but it weaves in and out of that, and it comes from where that scrape was over there. But you have a cross trail coming on the underside of the knob here, and it goes up along that ridge there. This is probably the last week of scouting. Something just took off, it just crashed. Like I was saying, this is probably the last week where the green up isn't going to be too hard to navigate. We had a lot of rain this week, so after next week this is going to be a lot more grown up. It's going to be harder to see trails. The deer are going to move a little bit differently because they're going to have browse everywhere. You can see forever. That crashing I heard was down towards that other hillside over there. So right where you can see over this side, and you can see down over there if you walk up a little bit, there's a hardcore trail coming off right here, and then it splits and goes straight over and down to the other knob it's going to go to, and it goes up to the top of this knob, which we're going to check out. It's probably beds, but we found possibly a primary scrape here that is just cleaned out here. So this is definitely a spot I might put a camera. I'm going to go up a little bit more and see, because I think down there more is where I would want to put a camera, because again, it wouldn't take much for someone to find my camera here, and it's not well hidden. 30 yards from the other scrape, there's another one right here, a licking branch, going right up to the top of this knob. But based on what I see so far here, it might be that they're bedding on the edge of this. But it looks like they're based on all the sign and the trails, it looks like they want to be on that side more. And primarily where I think they're going to be is back there, away from the pressure. Because there's a very good, like 3 knobs kind of close to each other that goes down between these two, and it's on the back over here. You won't be able to see it for a little while yet. I got a hike to do. And like I said, I think they're all coming down to the other side, but here's the trail coming off of the area I just came from. And that scrape is at the end of this, on top of the little knob there. So based on what I'm thinking is they use these trails to get back there, and then a buck would come out checking this area, and he would hit that scrape up there on his way out. And I'm guessing based on the wind would be whether or not he's on this side or on that side, because that's probably the same scenario here with these little rolling knobs, and they all dip down to the same area where all the hunting pressure is, but where all the sign is concentrated, because that's where they're exiting. And this is a lot easier to navigate in here. The trails are very defined and it's kind of open. But again, there's a trail here cutting across the other side that I want to check, and there's a scrape here. It's directly in the middle of this bowl area here where a deer would cross from knob to knob. So they're just knob hopping through here. We're gonna find our way up on this knob up here and check it out. It's a little more bigger, so it's probably gonna be more of a staging area than a bedding area. I imagine they're gonna stick to the more prominent knobs deeper in. And it leads to a scrape here. I don't think they're using it very often though. Look at all the doe droppings just piled in, and then one tiny old rub. They'll just probably pop up over, browse through this stuff slowly, hit the scrape, take the trail I just went on to the other knob, go over to that one, check that scrape, and they're just keeping tabs on each other. It's just vast, but they're specifically following terrain. So while this looks monotonous and endless, it's actually very easy to find out where the deer actually are. The amount of doe sign coming into this area here that goes back to that scrape just on the other side of this tree here is every single inch of this is covered in doe crap, and that's because that is hard to travel through, but this is pretty wide open and lower down, and then they just go back to where that scrape was, and then this leads down into a mix of hardwoods and a knob. So if I go back to those knobs I'm talking about, they're probably actually hardwoods, and then the clear cuts are over there. So we're getting hardwoods, knobs, clear cuts, and then they all tie together. And the bugs are terrible. Very defined trails going into the hardwoods here. Now what my goal is in the hardwoods, there's one defined knob deep in that is kind of protected by a swamp. And it's a spot that I know no one's gonna be. But ideally what we find is something in these trees back here, whether it's acorns or beech nut, would be ideal. But look how worn down these trails are going back to that knob I'm talking about. Just absolutely leveled. And how thick it is in here with these defined trails. It should be easy to find where a buck would be bedding. But you can already see over here it's choking down because we're getting into very, very big swamps. And about 10 yards later, we're already very, very old rub, but historical, with a very defined trail going directly to that knob I was talking about. Now, if I find a scrape back here is where I'm going to put the camera, because it's going to be 100% a kill camera. We should be able to find more rubs. Man, this is very defined through here. There's like 2 trails only. We'll follow the one with the buck rub on it. Very defined trails going through here. And I just dipped out of that trail there, and I think I found our first possible kill spot here. There looks like an old scrape that hasn't been used, a tree that's snapped and bent. That trail we just came on here was the one with the rub, and it splits into another trail here that goes up to the same area, but probably cuts off to that other ridge. And we have ourselves a little 4-way intersection going across, and we have a little bowl here that a buck's gonna come probably off that knob I'm talking about, and he'll use this bowl as a collection area for all the thermals, which might be tough to kill him, but it's where he's gonna be. And then we gotta figure out where he's bedding and how close we can actually get to him. Because if we know he's gonna come to this spot and check the scrape, especially if we light this scrape up closer to season. Put some pre-orbital and interdigital in there, and it should pull him right out to check it. But as I'm standing here, I have winds coming from all directions. It's just swirling in here, which would be why a big buck would use this spot. We just got to figure out how to kill him before he wins us. I really wanted to zip across to that knob, but just looking at this spot, there's gradual rises on both sides making this bowl. There's a good chance that he's bedding really close to this. With how this converses down into here, I gotta at least check this little spot out here and over there before I go deeper in to that knob. This is all swamp area here, so it's very, very thick. Oh wow. Just as I say that, look at this trail. Bugs are biting me like crazy today. But if I didn't have any big buck vibes before, look at this. Coming right down to that spot. Yeah, this might be a kill spot and a kill camera. Wow. Oh, these spider webs in the springtime are terrible. And it leads back to that knob I was talking about anyway. So we're gonna back up to that spot. I'm gonna put a camera there now. Anything else I find would be too close to the actual deer. And this is guaranteed. This is exciting actually. These are the cameras you get 160s on. So we're just gonna rip this open. The does are still using it. And reactivate it. And as long as we keep this scrape active, even if he's not using it, he'll come check it out so we can at least see what's in the area, because we know where he's probably gonna be. We just need to know what he is, so we're not coming back here shooting a 10-year-old 120 incher. And it's all part of the puzzle here. We're trying to figure out where all these destination spots are, these high probability kill spots. Is that a rub? It is. There's a rub over there. Is that a rub? Yeah, that's a rub. That's another historical rub. Like I was saying, it's all puzzle pieces to figure out all these high probability kill spots that we can monitor, we can hunt, we can check off throughout the season. Because if we figure all this stuff out now, and we know the 10 best locations that we can find him and kill him, then it's just a matter of playing the game and putting in the effort, because we're already putting the odds in our favor by scouting before season and figuring all this stuff out. Then with trail cameras, they'll give us an idea of what's using it. And you'll be surprised too that if I get a giant buck on this camera, that he might not be 2 miles away on the other camera later this year. We figure it out, and then we just got to commit to a spot and kill. I don't want this to get covered back up, so we're going to clear it out pretty good here. So, and then we just have to check it later in season, get an update, learn a lot, and figure out how we're going to hunt it then. Because if we don't get any deer on this camera, it might be later in the season when they get pressured, so we'll keep it here and monitor it. But at least we know that this won't be the kill spot first thing in October if there's nothing on it. Now if we get a hammer coming through here every night, then we know what to do. So when I said it was a protected bedding knob, it is insanely thick in here, barricaded on both sides. The swamp's over there, and there's only one way through this area on this beat down trail that leads back to this hardwoods knob. And again, we're far away from pressure now, and they have everything they need back here because the swamp gives them water. There's tons of browse in here. There's obviously cover. They're not going to be able to get walked up on by anybody back here. I just had one snort. I don't know if you heard that. Deer just snorted that way. One deer. That's on the back side of the other swamp. But this is the places that a big old buck is going to hole up and gradually work to that bull at dark and never have to worry about any trouble. It is thick. We just need to get through this. So he might take the where I heard that snort was over there. So look at that. I just walked right by that. It's low on the tree. Historical rub, which means there's age back here at least, because there's nobody coming back here hunting. Nobody. It's a pretty wide tree directly going out. So where I just said that he might find a different way through, looks like, I think there's another little rub right there. This is the places I think about at night. And this is that other trail that I said that I was gonna check if there's bedding on. It leads over that little knob. getting down to the same bull. Look at this. Clear open top. Brushy as all hell around. So we just came from up over there. We looped around, came up over the top. And this looks a little different than everything else. Just a scrape with coyote droppings in it. But I'm wondering if that's a bed. It doesn't look like one, but they're not gonna, there's doe droppings. It's gonna be hard to find a bed back here with how hard the ground is. It's all rock. So while that doesn't look like a bed, it very well could be. It's tucked against cover there. I wish there was rubs on it. I mean, there's a scrape on it. And it looks like there's trails that dip down the backside of the swamp and then back out the way. Oh, look at this. There's a rub right there, old one. But even if this is where he was, there's no way I could hunt him here. I have to have him come out to that bull, shoot him as he comes out, because that's where he's gonna go. He'll get up way before dark in here and mill around, forage, but the water is out by that bull. So he's gonna get out and go out there to drink. That's good to know. There's a scrape in here though. But like I said, it's impossible to tell where he's gonna bed. And if there's several different bucks moving through this area and they bed in this area, then they could, oh, right there, young buck. That is within a day or two probably. Still waxy. That is very fresh. So that's a young buck. Well, there's bucks using this, and those are historic rubs. There should be age back here. I don't want to go into this. It's just more thick side hill. I can walk through this a million times. It doesn't mean I'm going to learn anything. We know that they're using this as bedding. And we know they're going over there. Now, if we get all night pictures, then we got to figure something else out. Then we might just have to push in here more, or maybe check the other side where all this is going to. So all this is great. We'll leave that for the deer. How about that? But you got a little bedding over there too, and up in there. But that is usually insanely thick. That the bigger bucks, especially with bigger antlers, going into that bedding is just a disaster to them, where they can stay in these still thick but easier to travel through knobs on the edge of the swamp. A lot of times those spots are where the does are, or you have the does there and a buck will hold her in there during the rut. So I'm predicting that this is the main trail out of where that bedding is. Cameras on the other end of this up there, on where all these points converge and exit from, to all these side hills with the clear cuts beginning. So I'm guessing if he's coming out here, thermals are gonna be dropping down. He's gonna stand here for a long time. So ideally, if that's what he's doing, and you have the swamp water there pushing thermals towards me, he's gonna have random thermals gusting that way. But if I stay on this side, for instance, I could probably go up this tree here, and I'll still be able to see into the swamp, so I can learn stuff. I can get in here quietly, and I can shoot him at his security barrier here. Or even if I get an angle up on the right at the top of this rise here, that's probably 35, 40 yards. So if I have to, I can shoot him in cover if he refuses to come out, which is very likely. And if anything else drops down here, I can still get a shot, but they're probably going to be on the edge of that cover working out. So we'll have to see what the camera shows. And we'll go up here on our way out to the other area and see what this clear cut edge looks like, because I have a feeling all the does are going to be mainly bedding on this stuff. Didn't get the camera out quick enough, but we should see it when we go up here. There was does right here on the edge of the swamp working back. Yeah, she was bedded in here somewhere. I can't see her exact bed. I'm assuming it's right in this little ditch here, but you can see here it's really thick on this little patch here. It leads up to the clear cuts. And you got yourself a solid ridge all the way out, transition cover, which isn't going to work because this is all just flat for a long ways. So I'm going to work this out. I got probably a 40-minute hike to get where I want to, but if I find something I like there's another way to access it, which is further by bike, but it'll be easier and quieter to get through. So you got to be careful out here, because all the way out there is a big bear. It was in the wide open, but I didn't get the camera out fast enough. That's the way I wanted to go back, but you got to be careful. You sneak up on a sow with cubs, you're in deep shit, especially all the way out here. we're gonna keep on moving. But that's the area I said I didn't want to go through because it's just monotonous and just open terrain. We're finally getting back up to that knob. It starts, there's a couple knobs that butt up right against the clear cuts up there. But again, this ridge trail is just staying strong down here. And I think that doe that I bumped out is still running because the leaves are all kicked up. And you can see I'm still following this trail through here. There's also where that top knob next to clear cuts comes down and meets. So depending how that looks, might be a place I put the camera, because this is an obvious preferred travel because it's wide open. Even if it's nighttime, we'll be able to see what's used in the area. We have obvious terrain. That's the trail I just came in on. We have our first scrape right here. But this all comes out, and there's a high point here, and then there's like a little valley, and it goes to another high point. But it's turning into bedding cover up here. And I'm guessing when we get down to this little bowl area, we should find a little more concentrated movement. All right, so we have a good scrape here. And this is in between, well, it's even being freshly used. You got doe print in there. And it's in between this that I was telling you about, where you have that high point over there. It's like a little valley, and it leads over into really thick stuff over there. But they're obviously hitting this because it's the wraparound point. There's scrapes everywhere here. And it goes through there. And we have that out there. So I'm thinking that I might put the camera here, because obviously this is still being used and it's very centralized, so the does feel comfortable using this. So I'm just going to put a camera on this here to cover this whole area, hopefully, just for an inventory. And the buck should come and check that too, because the does are using it. And then I'm going to head up across here to check these clear cuts. So I came up from the camera I placed down there in that scrape, and it comes up to this little extension out into the clear cuts. It's a very beat down trail, but look how thick this is. There's probably no deer going through that. And there's one defined trail coming up on the edge of this. So we're gonna check where this finger comes out, and it might be a good bedding area, but they're not going that way. That's impenetrable stuff. That might be where does might flee, but we're not out here for does. They might be bedding up here and then working down and using the woods to get to where they want to go, along that ridge, along the swamp maybe. Because this is more clear cuts over there, but in between that is extremely thick. That is unbearably thick over there. I see why the bears are back here now, because it's just so thick. I'm on a tight schedule today. It's just after like 12:30 now. Now that looks like a buck. The staggered steps. And it's not running either. It's almost a 4-finger track there. Yeah, it's like a little bit bigger than a 3-finger track, but it's definitely a buck. You can tell by the way they stagger step. Does usually walk in the same footsteps. This buck is going down into here. Where are you going? There's a knob up there we could probably check out. This actually looks better than I thought out here. You can see the open green patches going through, but it's still really thick on the edges. And there's terrain protecting. And this would be easy to hunt. Now the hard part is getting in here, because this, I don't want to even hunt back here, but all depends how big the deer is. There's, it looks like a scrape. Does are using that as well. This is actually pleasant to walk through. Very defined trails. There goes a deer. Looks like a doe. Right on top of this knob. There's another scrape right here. Tons of doe sign. There's another scrape over there. We'll still get everything on camera down there without blowing the place out. This place seems like a little honey hole. A little knob bedding up there probably. That's the doe was bedded right up there next to that brush pile. This just seems like a little oasis back here. And I guarantee no one's ever gone back here. It is a hike and a half to get where I'm at right now, and not through any easy stuff. So she was bedded over there, but tell me why she uses this as a bedding area. This would be one crazy rifle spot. Good luck getting a shot through any of this, but you'd at least see a lot of deer. This is a crazy spot, and I'm pretty sure I'm on the back side of where I was saying across that swamp I wanted to check out, but there's a better way to access it. Well, I didn't access it the better way. But this is just massive back here. We're gonna head on out now. I'm out of time. I'm gonna have to speed walk this out. I'm gonna drop back down to the hardwoods and make good time out. Try and go out the same way I came in, but I'm gonna take that ridge in the beginning back that's a little more open and check that out on the way.